if you're really bright, have you ever thought about what it is to be intelligent? Probably some of you have, right? Because you meet your friend and he's pretty dumb and maybe you think you're smarter and you wonder what the difference is. When I visited a school, it was like had third and fourth graders in a classroom one time, and they had a whole classroom full of Apple IIs, and I spent a few hours there and I saw these third and fourth graders growing up completely different than I grew up because of this machine. And what hit me about it was that here was this machine that very few people designed, about 4 in the case of the Apple II. And then they gave it to some people that didn't know how to design it, but they knew how to make it, to manufacture it. They could make a whole bunch of them. They gave it to some people that didn't know how to design it or manufacture it, but they knew how to distribute it. And they gave it to some people that didn't know how to design it or manufacture it or distribute it, but they knew how to write software for it. And gradually this sort of inverse pyramid grew. And when it finally got into the hands of a lot of people, it blossomed out of this tiny little seed. And it seemed like an incredible amount of leverage. And it all started with just an idea. And here was this idea taken through all of these stages, resulting in a classroom full of kids growing up with some insights and some fundamentally different experiences, which I thought might be very beneficial to their lives because of this germ of an idea a few years ago. And that's an incredible feeling. To know that you had something to do with it, A, and B, to know it can be done. To know that you can plant something in the world and it'll grow and change the world ever so slightly. And we decided we wanted to start a company that had a lot to do with education, and in particular, higher education, colleges and universities. So what our vision is that there's a revolution in software going on now on college and university campuses. And it has to do with providing 2 types of breakthrough software. One is called simulated learning environments. It's where you can't give a student in physics a linear accelerator. You can't give a student in biology a $5 million recombinant DNA laboratory, but you can simulate those things. You can simulate them on a very powerful computer. And it is not possible for students to afford these things. It is not possible for most faculty members to afford these things. So if we can take what we do best, which is to find really great technology and pull it down to a price point that's affordable to people, if we can do the same thing for this type of computer, which is maybe 10 times as powerful as a personal computer, then I think we can make a real difference in the way the learning experience happens in the next 5 years. And that's what we're trying to do. 1985 was a slow year, but there is such momentum behind this that it will happen. It will permeate and change forever our educational processes. And my hope, again, is that not too many generations of students will pass through before this happens. It will happen within 20 years. It probably will happen within 10 years. But it could happen within 5 years. We are going to make it or break it based on whether we can provide products to higher education and services and relationships to higher education that no one else provides. And I think we ought to spend 100% of our time thinking about that. And if we can't do that, then we ought to go broke. There needs to be someone who is sort of the keeper and reiterator of the vision. Because there's just a ton of work to do. And a lot of times, you know, when you have to walk 1,000 miles and you take the first step, it looks like a long ways. And it really helps if there's someone there saying, well, we're one step closer. You know, the goal definitely exists. It's not just a mirage out there. The greatest people are self-managing. They don't need to be managed. If they know once they know what to do, they'll go figure out how to do it. They don't need to be managed at all. What they need is a common vision. And that's what leadership is. What leadership is having a vision, being able to articulate that so the people around you can understand it, and getting a consensus on a common vision. We wanted people that were insanely great at what they did, but we're not necessarily those seasoned professionals, but who had at the tips of their fingers and in their passion the latest understanding of where technology was and what we could do with that technology, and who wanted to bring that to lots of people. So the neatest thing that happens is when you get a core group of 10 great people, that it becomes self-policing as to who they let into that group. So I consider the most important job of someone like myself is recruiting. Well, I've forgotten how much work it actually is to start a company. It's a lot of work. And you've got to do everything. You've got to come up with a name. You've got to come up with a logo. I mean, in addition to designing the product, you've got to figure out what to design. You've got to figure out how you're going to get it to the marketplace. You've got to do a part number system. You've got to go get bank accounts. You've got to set up charts, general ledgers, get a management information system, get a little kitchen set up, get a coffee maker, all this stuff. More important than building a product, we are in the process of architecting a company that will hopefully be much more incredible. The total will be much more incredible than the sum of its parts. And the cumulative effort of approximately 20,000 decisions that we're all going to make in the next 2 years are going to define what our company is. And one of the things that made Apple great was that in the early days, it was built from the heart. Not by somebody who came in and said, I know how to build a company. Here's what you do. It wasn't built that way. It was built from the heart. Now, unfortunately, we didn't always use our heads. And we can do better in many respects because we are wiser and smarter and know more and those kinds of things. One of my largest wishes is that we build next from the heart. And the people that are thinking about coming to work for us or buying our products or who want to sell us things feel that we're doing this because we have a passion about it. We're doing this because we really care about the higher educational process. Not because we want to make a buck. Not because we just want to do it to do it. When I was a young kid, there was a widowed man that lived up the street. And he was in his 80s. He's a little scary looking. And I got to know him a little bit. I think he might have paid me to mow his lawn or something. And one day he said, come on into my garage, I want to show you something. And he pulled out this dusty old rock tumbler. It was a motor and a coffee can and a little band between them. And he said, come on with me. We went out to the back and we got just some rocks, some regular old ugly rocks. And we put them in the can with a little bit of liquid and a little bit of grit powder. And we closed the can up and he turned this motor on. He said, come back tomorrow. And I came back the next day, and we opened the can, and we took out these amazingly beautiful polished rocks. The same common stones that had gone in through rubbing against each other like this, creating a little bit of friction, creating a little bit of noise, had come out these beautiful polished rocks. And that's always been, in my mind, my metaphor for a team working really hard on something they're passionate about is that it's through the team, through that group of incredibly talented people bumping up against each other, having arguments, having fights sometimes, making some noise, and working together, they polish each other, and they polish the ideas, and what comes out are these really beautiful stones.
I guess I disagree with price being the second thing, because unless we have this technology that wows people.
That's like a bomb run. You don't change your target when you're in the bomb run. I have a problem with the fact that they just make really third-rate products. What can I say? I hired the wrong guy. He destroyed everything I'd spent 10 years working for. Starting with me, but that wasn't the saddest part. I would have gladly left Apple if Apple would have turned out like I'd wanted it to. But the key thing is that if you're going to make connections which are innovative, to connect two experiences together, that you have to not have the same bag of experiences as everyone else does, or else you're going to make the same connections, and then you won't be innovative, and then get different experiences than the normal course of events. And one of the funny things about being bright is everyone puts you on this path, to go to high school, go to college. I've heard about some kid that's 14 on his way to Stanford, and that's great. That's sort of out of the ordinary. In my mind, growing up, I don't know how it got there, but that the world was sort of something that happened just outside your peepers, and you didn't really try to change it. You just sort of tried to find your place in it, and have the best life you could, and it would all just go on out there. And there were some pretty bright people running it. And as you start to interact with some of these people, you find they're not a lot different than you. the people actually making these decisions every day that are sort of running the world are not really very much different than you. And they might have a little more judgment in some areas, but basically they're the same. And once you realize that, you start to feel you have a responsibility to do something about it, because the world's in pretty bad shape right now. I guess one of the things that motivates a lot of people that I've seen that actually get out and do something in any different field is that we all sort of eat food that other people cook and wear clothing that other people make and speak a language that other people evolved and use someone else's mathematics. And we're sort of taking from this giant pool constantly. And the most ecstatic thing in the whole world is actually put something back into that pool. And I think people from all the fields that maybe you've heard from here and a whole bunch that you haven't would express the same sort of feeling. It's the most ecstatic thing that I've encountered. So I would highly recommend it.
Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side. You can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing.